Bill Nye on the cow industry. A cowboy college needed to educate young men to this profession. From Bill Nye's Cordwood. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Dale Grothman. A cowboy college needed to educate young men to this profession. By Bill Nye. No one can go through the wide territory of Montana today without being strongly impressed with the wonderful growth of the great cattle growing and grazing industry of that territory. And yet, Montana is but the northern extremity of the great grazing belt which lies at the foot of the Rocky Mountains, extending from the British possessions on the north to the Mexican border on the south, extending eastward too as far as the arable lands of Dakota, Nebraska, and Kansas. Montana, at this season of the year, is the paradise of the sleek, high-headed 2-year-old Texan steer, with his tail over the dashboard, as well as the stock yearling born on the range, beneath the glorious mountain sky, and under the auspices of Roundup No. 21. I do not say this to advertise the stock-growing business, because it is already advertised too much anyway. So many millionaires have been made with free grass and the early rising automatic branding iron that every man in the United States who has a cow that can stand the journey seems to be about to take her west and embark in business as a cattle king. But let me warn the amateur cowman that in the great grazing regions it takes a good many acres of thin grass to maintain an adult steer in affluence for 12 months, and the great pastures at the base of the mountains are being pretty well tested. Moreover, I believe that these great conventions of cattlemen with free grass and easily acquired fortunes are naturally advertised, will tend to overstock the ranges at last and founder the goose that now lays the golden egg. This, of course, is none of my business, but if I don't now and then refer to matters that do not concern me, I would be regarded as reticent. My intention, however, in approaching the great cow industry, which, by the way, is anything but an industry, being in fact more like a seductive manner whereby a promissory note acquires 2% per month without even stopping to spit on its hands, has to refer incidentally to the proposition of an English friend of mine. This friend, seeing at once the great magnitude of the cow industry and the necessity for more and more cowboys, has suggested the idea of establishing a cowboys' college or training school for self-made young men who desire to become accomplished. The average Englishman will most always think of something that nobody else would naturally think of. Now, our cattleman would have gone on for years with his great steer emporium without thinking of establishing an institution where a poor boy might go and learn to rope a 4-year-old in such a way as to throw him on his stomach with a sickening thud. The young maverick savant could take a kindergarten course in the study of cow brands. Here a wide field opens up to the scholar. The adult steer in the great realm of beef is now a walking Chinese washbill, a Hindu poem in the original junk shop alphabet, a 4-legged Greek inscription punctuated with jim jams, a stenographer's notes on a riot, a bird's eye view of a premature explosion in a hardware store. The cowboy who can at once grapple with the great problem of where to put the steer with the B bar B on the left shoulder, key circle G on the left side, heart D heart on the right hip, left ear crop, waddle to waddle, and 7 hands round with dash B dash on the right shoulder, vented waddle on dewlap vented, and PDQ, COD, and NG vented on the right side, keeping track of the transfers, range, and post office of last owner, has certainly got a future, which lies mostly ahead of him. But now that the idea has been turned loose, I shall look forward to the time when wealthy men who have been in the habit of dying and leaving their money to other institutions will meet with a change of heart and begin to endow the Cowboys' College and the maverick hotbed of bronco sciences. We live in an age of rapid advancement in all branches of learning, and people who do not rise early in the morning will not retain their position in the procession. I look forward with confidence to the day when no cowboy will undertake to ride the range without a diploma. Educated labor is what we need. Cowboys who can tell you in scientific terms why it is always the biggest steer that eats pigeonweed in the spring, and why he should swell up and bust on a rising Chicago market. I hope that the day is not far distant when in the holster of a cowboy we will find the Iliad instead of the Kiliad, the abridged dictionary instead of Mr. Remington's great work on homicide. As it is now on the ranges, you might ride till your Mexican saddle aches before you could find a cowboy who carries a dictionary with him. For that reason, the language used on the general roundup is at times grammatically incorrect, and many of our leading cowboys spell caviard with a K. A college on riding, roping, branding, cutting out, corralling, loading and unloading, and handling cattle generally would be a great boon to our young men, who are at present groping in dark and pitiable ignorance of the habits of the untutored cow. Let the young man first learn how to sit up 3 nights in succession through the bad March snowstorm and hold a herd of restless cattle. Let him then ride through the hot sun and alkali dust a week or two, subsisting on a chunk of disagreeable side pork just large enough to bait a trap. Then let his horse fall on him and injure his constitution and preamble. All these things would give the cow student an idea of how to ride the range. The amateur who has never tried to ride a skittish and sulky range has still a great deal to learn. Perhaps I have said too much on this subject, but when I get thoroughly awakened on this great porterhouse steak problem, I am apt to carry the matter too far. The end of A Cowboy College Needed for the Education of Men to This Profession by Bill Nye.